Moana 2 came out in theaters recently, and it is heavy with Polynesian details and symbols. From cultural treasures to hidden Easter eggs, these details in Moana 2 celebrate Polynesia like Disney never has before. So today, I'm going to share 40 details that you may have missed or that may help moviegoers understand more about why Polynesians loved Moana 2. First, a little context. I'm going to share from a Hawaiian perspective. I say that because some of these details exist differently in different Polynesian cultures, but I will share from a Hawaiian perspective while still respecting the other Polynesian cultures. Also, spoiler alerts if you haven't seen Moana 2 yet. So with that, let's get started. Moana means ocean in Hawaiian. Makes sense, since the girl who voiced her in Moana 1 and 2, Auli'i Carvalho, is Hawaiian, and she did such a wonderful job of it. Moana's skirt is made of pandanus leaves. No, this is not a picture of a pineapple tree. Pineapples don't grow on trees. This is a pandanus tree. The leaves were dried and used to make clothing and other household items. And we don't eat the thing that looks like a pineapple. Moana's skirt is made of tapa. Tapa is similar to pandanus in that it comes from a tree, but tapa is from the bark of a tree, usually the paper mulberry tree. And it is used to make various materials throughout Polynesia. While Maui has stories in many Polynesian cultures, he has strong roots in Hawaii. He had brothers and was always tricking them. He was a Hawaiian demigod who did things for various islands. Speaking of which, at the end of Moana 2, I was so happy to see him lasso the sun. This comes from a Polynesian legend where the sun was moving too quickly, so Maui lassoed it to slow it down so people could complete their daily tasks. At the same time, he also pulled up Motu Fetu. So Maui, in his legends, used his manaya kalani, his fish hook, to pull up islands to expand the land. So this scene in Moana 2 was a combination of different legends. Brother Iz wrote a song about Maui people should listen to called Hawaiian Superman.
Oh Maui, the Hawaiian Superman.
In the legends, Maui was a shapeshifter and could change into various forms, and one of those forms was a hawk. And he did so to escape the wrath of Mahuika, the fire goddess, who was trying to throw fire to kill him. So he turned into a hawk to escape. Maui's necklace is made of whale teeth, often called a le niho palaoa, which is a symbol for strength and power. Usually, only chiefs or others with high status were allowed to wear them. Maui's fish hook was given to him by the gods when he was young. It was often used to pull up lands from the deep ocean, as he did in the end of the movie. Maui's skirt is made of tea leaves. While Maui talks about his tea leaf skirt somewhat casually in Moana 2, it has more sacred significance tied to spiritual practices and hula. But I guess if he was wearing it all the time, I can understand where he was coming from. Wayfinding was a skill that could only be passed down from one wayfinder to another. So it is significant that the only way Moana could have become a wayfinder herself was if she was taught by a wayfinder in Maui. In the beginning of Moana 2, Moana finds some Lapita pottery, which was pretty cool. This was ancient pottery that is from the Lapita, who are believed to be the ancestors of Polynesians. The farmer, played by David Fane, was a detail that I really liked. Farmers were brought on the longer voyages to cultivate plants and keep vegetation alive for when they reached their new destination. So the canoe having an area for plants was absolutely correct and awesome. But considering the scope of their journey, the canoe would probably have been much bigger, something more similar to the canoes at the end of Moana 1. But for storytelling purposes, I understand why a smaller canoe was used in this movie. There is one detail that, at least in some of the images, was incorrect. In some of the images, the canoe hulls appeared to be several pieces put together, but the hull of the canoe would have been a single piece, one tree trunk hollowed out. This practice still continues today, but upgrading from a single hull in Moana 1 to a double hull in Moana 2 was a great detail. This covering would have been where voyagers slept on their journeys, so plants get to be below deck and people get a tent, which is correct. The back oar was how they steered those giant ships, and it took a very strong person to monitor it. Notice how everything on the boat is tied. There are no pulleys or other types of instruments on the ships. They were all tied or interlooped, which was a really good detail. Moana's oar has been a significant part of her journey, and in the end of Moana 2, we finally get to see it receive its design. This practice has existed for a long time, and there are still people who hand carve oars, especially in New Zealand. For Moana, it shows her status and accomplishments. Several drums in the movie are slit drums, and while the sound in one of the scenes was wrong, it would have sounded like this. But the style is correct. But later in the movie, we do see a pahu drum, which would have made that sound. Later in the movie, the conch shell, which perhaps was my favorite detail, was used to announce ships arriving, sunsets, and the arrival of royalty. When Moana returned from her voyage, when she found the lapita pottery, she brought back some fruit, which is called noni. Noni is used in a lot of Hawaiian medicine even today, but it needs to be fermented to be used properly. The plant that the people are farming is taro. In Hawaii, taro is used to make poi, but it was an important part of the voyages because if it is pounded into poi, it can last a very long time without needing to be refrigerated. It just turns sour.
You know my grandma, she liked the poi real sour.
Notice how no one in the entire movie was wearing shoes. Shoes as we know them were not introduced until European contact. That was a fun detail for me because I hate wearing shoes. Hashtag slippers for life. Moana's pig is named Pua, which means flower in Hawaiian.
He can call me a flower if he wants to.
This is called a fale in Samoan. We would call it a hale in Hawaiian, but a Hawaiian hale is different in both design and purpose. But one note about a fale is that it has a tall thatched roof that keeps the hot air high and away from the people down below. Kava is a ceremonial drink that is very common in many Polynesian cultures. There are several important details about the kava ceremony that are very good, and a part of the movie that clearly was carefully crafted. Notice that there are no tables or chairs. Everyone is sitting on the mats on the floor. Kava is spilled on the ground to share it with the bones of their ancestors. This is partially why bones are so important to Polynesians. In the old days, kava used to be held with two hands, but that practice has mostly been abandoned, and it is now more common practice to hold the kava with one hand. Chee-hoo is primarily a Samoan phrase. While it has been more widely accepted in other Polynesian cultures, its origin is Samoan. Speaking of Samoans, fire knife is also Samoan. There are fire knife competitions in various parts of the world, but the practice is Samoan. Also, if you notice Chief Tui's tattoos that come up his side, the tattoo is called a pe'a. Those tattoos reflect his status as chief. People still get those tattoos to show their cultural status. In the end of the movie, Moana gets a tattoo on her arm, which is probably similar to a malu. While this is probably a modern practice, it shows Moana's status after her sacrifice. Aumakua is Hawaiian, and this is another detail that I love. Aumakua is the belief that people who die come back as animals who will protect or help family members. This is why Grandma Tala comes back as a ray to help Moana at various times, or why Tautaivasa comes back as a whale shark to help Moana. It is because they are Aumakua. Speaking of Tautaivasa, I love his headdress. It is red and yellow because those are from the most rare and precious birds, and the colors were given to royalty or to those chosen to wear those colors. The symbol shown at the end of Moana's sacrifice where Tautaivasa returned is the basic theme of both Moana movies, which shows how people are connected across generations, from Moana to her grandma to Tautaivasa. We see this again in the end when all of the people come together after Motufetu was raised, and we see people from all over the ocean come together. There is a message of family unity as well as one of people come together from across the ocean. And last, we get to hear Nalo speak in a post-credits scene. Nalo, who was voiced by Tofinga Fepuleai, is an original character for the movie, as far as I can tell, and shows how closely Polynesians did and even continue to relate to the gods. So there you have it, 40 Polynesian details from Moana 2. And while this list is not at all comprehensive, I hope at least people can see how much more detail was put into this movie than in the first. It is absolutely packed with Polynesian cultural references. Comment what reference you appreciated most, or if you learned something from this video. Subscribe to see movie discussion videos, and we'll see you next time.